Within hours of the attack, rumors began to trickle out into the cybersecurity community about the glitches that had marred the Olympics website, Wi-Fi, and apps during the opening ceremony. Two days after the ceremony, the Pyeongchang's organizing committee confirmed that it had indeed been the target of a cyber attack. But it refused to comment on who might have been behind it, or who led the committee's response had declined to discuss any possible source of the attack with reporters. The incident immediately became an international whodunit.
Russian hackers have been accused of cyber attacks on the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics held in South Korea.
There have been attempts to hack Olympics organizations. One firm says the same Russian group that penetrated the Democratic Party.
Olympic officials have confirmed that a cyber attack took place during the opening ceremony for the Pyeongchang Games.
2018년 평창 동계올림픽 개막 때 발생한 해킹 사건이
cyber crimes potentially at the hands of North Korea's vast and very capable hacking operation.
It seems hackers are taking an interest in the games too.
Who will dare to hack the Olympics? The Pyeongchang cyber attack will turn out to be perhaps the most deceptive hacking operation in history, using the most sophisticated means ever seen to confound the forensic analysts searching for its culprit. The difficulty of proving the source of an attack, the so-called attribution problem, has plagued cybersecurity since practically the dawn of the internet. Sophisticated hackers can route their connections through circuitous proxies and blind allies, making it almost impossible to follow their tracks. Forensic analysts have nonetheless learned how to determine hackers' identities by other means, tying together clues in code, infrastructure connections, and political motivations. However, in the past few years, state-sponsored cyber spies and saboteurs have increasingly experimented with another trick: planting false flags. Those evolving acts of deception, designed to throw off security analysts and the public, have given rise to fraudulent narratives about hackers' identities and are difficult to dispel, even after governments announce the official findings of the intelligence agencies.
Our indictment today charges some of the same Russian operatives caught in The Hague, along with their colleagues in Moscow, as part of a conspiracy to hack a variety of individuals and organizations in the United States, Canada, and Europe to obtain information or access that was then exploited for the benefit of the Russian government. More specifically, this indictment alleges a conspiracy to use computer hacking to obtain non-public personal health information about athletes and others in the files of anti-doping agencies and sporting federations in multiple countries, and to release that stolen information selectively and sometimes misleadingly. All of this was done to undermine those organizations' efforts to ensure the integrity of the Olympic and other games.
It doesn't help that those official findings often arrive weeks or months later, with the most convincing evidence often redacted to preserve secret investigative techniques and sources. For example, when North Korean hackers breached Sony Pictures in 2014 to prevent the release of the Kim Jong-un assassination comedy, The Interview, they invented a hacktivist group called the Guardians of Peace and tried to throw off investigators with a vague demand for monetary compensation.
The United States government has concluded that the North Korean government is responsible for this attack, and we stand by that conclusion. And so, of course, as if I refer you back to the FBI's most recent statement on this, they also made clear that it remains an ongoing investigation, but the attribution and the conclusion of DPRK's responsibility is clear.
Even after the FBI officially named North Korea as the culprit, and the White House imposed new sanctions against the Kim regime as punishment, several security firms continued to argue that the attack must have been an inside job, a story picked up by numerous news outlets, including the reputable Wired. When state-sponsored Russian hackers stole and leaked emails from the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016, we now know that the Kremlin likewise created diversions and other cover stories. It invented a lone Romanian hacker named Gusifa 2.0 to take credit for the hacks. It also spread the rumors that a murdered DNC staffer named Seth Rich had leaked the emails from inside the organization, and it distributed many of the stolen documents through a fake whistleblowing website called DC Leaks.
Now to our top story. An Omaha family is grieving tonight after their son was shot and killed in Washington, D.C. over the weekend.
Seth Conrad Rich, who worked as voter expansion data director at the Democratic National Committee, has been killed in a shooting in Washington, D.C. over the weekend.
Seth Rich was shot twice in the back in what police said looked like a botched robbery. He was taken to hospital but died 2 hours later.
The attack happened here early Sunday morning, 27-year-old Seth Rich.
Those deceptions became conspiracy theories, funded by right-wing commentators and then presidential candidate Donald Trump. The deceptions generated a self-perpetuating Ouroboros of mistrust. Skeptics dismissed even glaring clues of the Kremlin's guilt, like Russian language formatting errors in the leaked documents, seeing those giveaways as planted evidence. Even a joint statement from US intelligence agencies 4 months later, naming Russia as the perpetrator, couldn't shake the conviction of disbelievers. They persist even today.
6 Russian intelligence officers have been condemned for a series of widespread cyber attacks, including attacks during the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in South Korea. According to the U.S. Justice Department and British officials on Monday, the officers from Russia's GRU military intelligence agency were involved in the hack of the 2018 Winter Olympics and Paralympics held in South Korea.
They conducted spear phishing campaigns against South Korea, the host of the Winter Games, as well as the International Olympic Committee, Olympic partners, and athletes. Then, during the opening ceremony, they launched the Olympic Destroyer malware, which deleted data from thousands of computers supporting the games, rendering them inoperable.
In a joint poll held by The Economist and YouGov, only about half of Americans said that they believe Russia interfered in the election. With the malware that hit the Pyeongchang Olympics, the state-of-the-art in digital deception took several evolutionary leaps forward. Investigators will find in its code not merely a single false flag, but layers of false clues pointing at multiple potential culprits. And some of those clues were hidden deeper than any cybersecurity analyst had ever seen before. From the start, the geopolitical motivations behind the Olympic sabotage were far from clear. The usual suspect for any cyber attack in South Korea is, of course, North Korea. The Hermit Kingdom has tormented its capitalist neighbor with military provocations and low-grade cyber wars for years. In the run-up to the Olympics, analysts at the cybersecurity firm McAfee had warned that Korean-speaking hackers had targeted the Pyeongchang Olympic organizers with phishing emails and what appeared to be espionage malware. At the time, McAfee analysts hinted in a phone call with reporters that North Korea was likely behind the spying scheme. But there were contradictory signals at the public stage. As the Olympics began, the North seemed to be experimenting with a friendly approach to geopolitics. The North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un, had sent his sister as a diplomatic emissary to the Games and had invited South Korea's president, Moon Jae-in, to visit the North Korean capital of Pyongyang. The two countries had even taken the surprising step of combining their Olympic women's hockey teams in a show of friendship. Why would North Korea launch a disruptive cyber attack in the midst of that charm offensive? Then there was Russia. The Kremlin had its own motive for an attack on the Pyeongchang. Investigations into doping by Russian athletes had led to a humiliating result in advance of the 2018 Olympics.
Smuggling urine samples, false records, and bribes, all examples of what many say is a state-sponsored doping program in Russia. A serial offender, the country is no stranger to sanctions. In 2015, Russia's anti-doping body was suspended after a global watchdog found evidence of systemic doping. In the most brazen case, urine samples of Russian athletes competing at the Sochi Olympics were smuggled through a mouse hole.
Russia was banned. Its athletes would be allowed to compete, but not wear the Russian flag or accept medals on behalf of their country.
In Pyeongchang, Russia was banned from the competition, the Olympic Committee allowing some to participate under a neutral flag.
For years in the lead-up to that verdict, a state-sponsored Russian hacker team known as Fancy Bear had been retaliating by stealing and leaking data from Olympic-related targets. Russia's exile from the Games was exactly the sort of slight that might inspire the Kremlin to unleash a piece of disruptive malware against the opening ceremony. If the Russian government couldn't enjoy the Olympics, then no one would. However, if Russia had been trying to send a message with an attack on the Olympic servers, it was hardly a direct one. Days before the opening ceremony, it had preemptively denied any Olympics-targeted hacking. We know that Western media are planning pseudo investigations on the theme of Russian fingerprints in hacking attacks on information resources related to the hosting of the Winter Olympic Games in the Republic of Korea. Russia's foreign ministry had told Reuters, of course, no evidence will be presented to the world. However, in fact, there will be plenty of evidence vaguely hinting at Russia's responsibility. The problem, it will soon become clear, was that there seemed to be just as much evidence pointing in a tangle of other directions too.